JAC is about to blow all of the current plug-in hybrid utes out of the water with this new Hunter. Now, why do I say blow them out of the water? Well, on paper, specs, this thing does stack up very well. We've got a 2-litre turbo-petrol 4-cylinder engine under the bonnet, paired up with a electric motor system. Combined, you've got 360 kilowatts. It feeds from a 31.2 kilowatt hour battery, providing a combined claimed range of over 1,000 kilometres. Now, while that might seem pretty good, you know, a lot of the diesel utes out there at the moment offer a claimed average range of around the same by the time you factor in the official average consumption. So that's not that impressive, but I think it is going to work well with buyers of this type of vehicle. Just quickly on the visuals, this looks pretty much the same as the regular JAC T9. It is fundamentally the same underneath, ladder frame chassis, except this does not have a tail shaft running through the middle. It's got an electric motor for the rear axle with coil springs. Up the back here, we've got the standard tray setup, spray and tub liner with some hooks up the top there. And then they're a little bit high mounted in my opinion. You'd rather have them lower down so you can strap things down. And the tailgate doesn't seem like it's got dampers, although it does have this kind of spring system here just to sort of slow it down and to help it when you're lifting it back up. Inside is pretty much identical to the regular T9 as well. We've just got some different settings and modes and so on, including something the main competitor, the BYD Shark, does not have at this stage: front and rear diff locks. You've also got various drive modes, off-road modes, and different settings for the power. Now, the touchscreen system is a little bit confusing at first. You've got drive modes here from the main apps page, but then you can go into settings with this little button down here. You can go into different driving preferences and modes there as well. So it feels like it is a little bit confusing how they've spread out different sections. You've got a vehicle mode there as well. That's all your off-road modes. Yeah, it just seems like that could be centralized a bit better. You just have all the drive settings, you know, and then all of the safety settings in a different menu. And if you go into engine management, we've got 4 different modes for the drive system. So you get EV Max, EV Priority, Fuel Priority, or Auto. Now, the vehicles we're testing here are pre-production models. They're not complete showroom spec vehicles. And mainly the suspension setup on these pre-production models is not what you'll get from showroom models. But they say the ADAS systems, throttle calibration, and some of the other technologies are representative of the showroom model. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes out on the road. For this test, we're just going to do a bit of an off-road course within the grounds here, and then we get to have a brief drive out on the road. I'll try and sneak in a 0 to 100 as well. I'm keen to see what this goes like with 360 kilowatts. I'll flash up the exact specs now in terms of curb weights and GVM and so on, but I'm guessing it's a little bit lighter than the BYD Shark, and with that 3.5 ton towing capacity and a 915 kilogram payload, yeah, this is definitely set up more for work duties rather than lifestyle duties, which you could say about models like the BYD Shark. And up at the back, we do have twin climate vents. That's good to see. We've got multiple charging options down there, including an AC 220 volt, 150 watt plug as well. Passenger space in the back is pretty good. I wouldn't describe this as the largest ute out there, which can be a good and bad thing. Like there's the MG U9 and the Photon as well. They're actually quite large and they offer more room inside, but this is going to be a little bit easier in the city and in car parks and so on, because it is of a slightly smaller dimensions compared with those. But it's good to see you've got handles on the ceiling and on the B-pillar and a flip down armrest with cup holders, at least on this variant. Well, firstly, we've got rake and reach adjustment for the steering column, which is great to see. Some of these cheaper models miss out on both forms of adjustment. And then as we're driving along, it's pretty much driving like an EV. So the petrol engine will only cut in when it needs to, or under certain demands, or if the battery drops down to a certain level. Yeah, so in that sense, it is a bit more of a refined package compared with a diesel, because you've just got, yeah, no clattering engine in the background, so smoothly and silently cruising along. So to start with, you just go up this little climb here. It is quite steep as usual. On camera they don't look as steep as they are, and it's wet, so it's a bit slippery, but this does have the all-terrain tires on. So what we're going to do is just go into the off-road mode, hit the button, petrol engine has started, We won't engage the diff locks to start with. We'll just leave it and just see how it copes. I think with the off-road, the all-terrain tyres obviously help out a bit. It'll be interesting to take the regular tyres up here. I don't think it would be, you know, as easy. Pretty cool parking cameras as well. It even tells you the distance of how close you are. So just easing on the power. That's about quarter throttle. It's figuring something out. So if you're used to off-roading, you have it in low range now, and I do feel like you've got a bit more of a feel in the pedal with low range gearing, whereas this, yeah, I'm pushing it, you know, almost half throttle, and it's figuring it all out, but it just doesn't feel as natural kind of thing, which is, yeah, if you're interested in doing a lot of off-roading, you just have to get used to it, I guess. And as we're going up, I've kind of left my foot in the same spot, and it started to pick up speed as the computers figured out, okay, now we're up here, we've got enough traction. Alright, so we've got another little climb here, a bit more rocky. We'll see how it copes. Yeah, I think the good thing about electric powertrains is you do have infinite control. I mean, not as the driver, but the computers have infinite control and very precise control as well. So it can feed, you know, 1% power through to the individual wheels potentially as well. So there is a good potential here, and it's doing it fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with its capability. It would be interesting to see how those standard tyres go though, but even so, considering the price as well, I think it's doing pretty good. Okay, here we're going to check out or test out the approach angle, departure angle, and all of that. It's actually quite steep and sharp. It suddenly drops down. I'm just going to turn the wheel a little bit to give us some sort of ramp. Be getting very close, I'm guessing.
You'd be right in the front. It's just the back now. It's just sliding the back.
Just ease it down. Just snag the mud flaps there, but that was, yeah, that's pretty good considering this is just a factory model. It's not a hardcore off-road special either. It is just the, you know, kind of one size fits all spec. I think that's done pretty good. Most buyers are probably not going to take on much more than that. In other words, like if you go to a camping site or whatever, it's not going to get, you know, much more serious than that. And that has passed in terms of clearances quite well.
Right, nice and slow, slow. Nice and slow.
So as far as I'm aware, this does work a little bit like the Shark in that the battery level will only drop so much. As it just went past 20%, I've noticed, the petrol engine kicks in. So it does have an electric motor at the back as the rear axle, and you might think, well, what happens when the battery's flat? You're not getting all that power. Well, that's when the petrol engine will automatically kick in and act as a bit of a generator to feed energy to that rear axle anyway. So theoretically, you should have close to the maximum output no matter where you are in the battery range, because it won't let it go you know, right down to 0% basically. You've also got settings in there if you want to hold the battery and, you know, force it to recharge and maintain at a certain level, like a lot of the other plug-in hybrids out there. Out on the road, it does feel a little bit firm, a little bit sort of jiggly, as a lot of the rivals do. But the good thing about this is, compared with some other utes in this class, this does have the heavy duty capability. You've got the 3.5 ton towing, the 915 kilogram payload, and the good off-road capability. So you're not compromising for the sake of nothing. You're actually getting something in return. I mean, you know, some of the Toyota Hiluxes are pretty firm as well, a bit like this, but I feel like maybe the D-Max is a bit more of a balanced setup, where it is still heavy duty, but a little bit more comfortable maybe. But keeping in mind, as I said before, these are pre-production models and the suspension tune has not been finalized yet. So what you get in the showroom might actually be, you know, fine-tuned a little bit more than what I'm driving here. It does feel very stable though, like you've got that, I mean, it's quite heavy, about 2.5 tons or 2.6 almost. So you've got that heavy sort of planted feeling all the time, which is going to be important to a lot of ute buyers, especially when you start loading them up. You've got that solid feel. This is wearing those all-terrain tires as well, and it feels, I did drive the regular tires, they're just the giddy tires on the regular model. They're not the best in my opinion, but it feels pretty much the same. I mean, you might get a bit more road noise with these all-terrains, but yeah, overall not too bad. Now the lane keep assist is all part of the ADAS, and they said that that is finalized, and I could feel it going around the corners back then. It's sort of, it is pushing me around a little bit, but I feel like, I mean, I've rarely got into a vehicle, a modern vehicle, where the ADAS is just, you know, does its job and that's it. They're always a bit oversensitive in my opinion. I had a test drive of one of the other models, one of the other test vehicles, and it got close to the line, and it kind of sucked it to the line, and then you stayed on the line. So I've found that with some other rivals as well, where it will, yeah, just fiddle around and interfere with your steering. I prefer to just turn them off anyway. Driver monitoring camera though hasn't gone off once, and I've got the camera stuck on my forehead as well. Usually that sends some triggers and warnings and so on, so that I think is, it seems to be calibrated quite well, at least in this pre-production model. All-round visibility is okay. You do have quite a big side mirror, but that's fair enough if you're doing towing or whatever. It's just out the back. The rear windscreen is pretty tight for this class of vehicle. You've got the headrest poking up there, but even the height of the windscreen does seem quite short compared with some others. But you do have that comprehensive surround view camera system, at least on this variant and this spec. So what about performance? Well, I'll try and do a 0 to 100 up here, but driving along, it like doesn't feel like 360 kilowatts, if I'm honest. I'll just show you the kind of kick down, slow down. This does have a kind of hybrid 4-speed transmission. Slow down to about 50, full throttle. And there's 100. As is usually the case with plug-in hybrids, the petrol engine isn't in sync with the actual acceleration, so you might have seen the speedo climb, but then the petrol engine sort of starts revving afterwards to keep supplying energy for the electric motors. But it doesn't feel like it has good initial response. I mean, it's good compared with a lot of diesel utes, but definitely the top end is where it really starts to come alive and really push you in the back a bit harder. But we'll do some 0 to 100 tests to find out exactly what it can do, keeping in mind I do have the battery at around 22%. We'll put it into sport mode as well, and that should give us a bit more sharper response. I've heard they might launch this with a launch control system as well, which could be, you know, a little bit exciting. All right, let's just try out a 0 to 100. I've got it in sport mode, and I've got it in the auto mode for the powertrain setup, which I think is probably the best for performance. I'll test one of these properly later on the private road, and we'll get some proper figures, but this is just a preview. Again, this is a pre-production model, so it might be slightly different in showroom spec. Try loading it up a bit. That doesn't really do anything. And there's 100. So reasonably quick. A bit of hesitation off the line as that 4-speed worked out what it needed to do, but yeah, it definitely feels like it's got a lot more pickup in the second half of the run, like a bit more top end rather than immediate response, especially if you compare it to most EVs out there. Like they're usually quite responsive straight off the line. Actually, we'll do another one going back the other way. This time I won't load it up on the brake because I think that caused the gearbox to just hesitate a little bit. Wait till we get to the straight section up here. And I guess it would make sense, you know, if you just flatten it as an electric vehicle. You know, they don't usually let you load it up on the brake. Let's see how we go. No cars behind me. All right, full throttle. And that's 100. Pretty similar. I think it was a tiny bit smoother, but it still did sort of, yeah, when I punched the throttle, it was the gearbox just slightly figuring out what was going on, and it gave us the full power. Overall though, decent performance, I think. There'll be more information in the written review linked in the description of this video.